Hello, welcome back to another edition of Higher Education Today. I'm your host, Steven Roy Goodman. I'm here at ADA University in Azerbaijan, where we're going to be speaking about studying civilizations and cultures. And we're going to be examining that from the perspective of not only a university, but also a carpet museum. Shirin Melikova is the director of the National Carpet Museum here in Baku, Azerbaijan. Shafag Mehraliyeva is an instructor of communications here at ADA University. Elnur Iskandarov is a student here at ADA University, and Andrea Komova is a student at the University of Glasgow who's studying here at ADA University for this year. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Shirin, maybe if I could start with you. What is the National University, the National Carpet Museum, and why is that so important in Azerbaijan?
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I would like to say that Azerbaijan National Carpet Museum is a unique museum, and it's established in Baku in 1967, and for that period it was the first carpet museum in all over the world. And it's not eventually that it's created in Azerbaijan, because one of our main symbol, the symbol of our culture, is a carpet. And this tradition, it's one of the sustainable tradition in our culture, and it goes back to the very ancient times, and we have evidence of evolution of this carpet art and the period of really blossoming, and now we can say that this tradition is alive. It's not just a museum which protects the items, the beautiful exhibits, and show it and promote it, but the carpets are always in our daily life, in all our traditions, and in our customs till nowadays.
Well, that's interesting. And maybe speaking about being alive, if I can ask you, Shafag, so how is a carpet alive at a university level? How does that work? And how do you communicate studying culture, not only through carpets, but also through other aspects of societal culture?
Well, as Shirin mentioned, culture is an element, cultural element, but it's only one of many, many cultural elements in Azerbaijan. And I usually tell my students, if there's one word to describe Azerbaijani culture, that would probably be multicultural. It is a term that is very widely used in international language today. Actually, two phrases: tolerance and multiculturalism. I personally don't prefer to use tolerance because it has sort of negative connotation for it. It actually means that I can't stand you, but I don't have any other choice but to tolerate you. But multicultural is what Azerbaijan is. We did not choose to be multicultural. I think the location where the country is located kind of defined these conditions for us, where the nation over the centuries evolved into a multicultural society.
Fair enough. And in terms of how we approach kind of how to study civilizations, as an instructor here, how do you try to get students to focus? And I realize you have two of your students immediately to your left, and I look forward to hearing their comments in a moment. But how do you try to instill in them how they can go about studying different civilizations?
Well, part of it includes a very wide general education program at ADA University, because no matter what majors are, when they come, they start with a general education program that includes courses like world history, world music, Azerbaijani studies as well. And this gives them sort of a comparative advantage to look at their own culture and to look at the cultures around the world, and see where they, as youth, a contemporary youth, can place their own identity within the global context.
And Elnur, do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. I think that the foundation here, the educational foundation, yeah, it's quite good, and it gives me the tools necessary to go abroad and explore the cultures.
But speaking about the cultures, how do you go about looking at, as a student, how do you go about looking at different cultures from around the world? How do you like to study them, as it were?
Of course, in the beginning, it's good to get some theory to get into books and check something. But I think that fundamentally, it's quite important just to get into the culture itself and just learn from there. It's a process. Through mistakes you learn, and you understand better and better what it is.
Well, that's interesting. And speaking of mistakes, Andrea, as an exchange student, no doubt you've made all sorts of mistakes culturally when you didn't understand something or you misunderstood something else. How do you go about kind of looking and studying cultures?
So in my opinion, like the best way how to study cultures is through personal experience, particularly like speaking to local students, speaking to local professors. It enriches me a lot. And also like speaking to taxi drivers, people in shops, you know, even if like they have like a kind of not that good, they are not that good in English or anything, we still can somehow understand each other. And it enriches me a lot in this way, definitely.
That's very interesting and very funny. So in terms of taxi drivers, do you have any good taxi driver stories since you came here from Glasgow that kind of struck you?
Okay, so first of all, I would say that compared to Scotland, in Scotland I have really difficulty to understand taxi drivers because they have very heavy Glasgow accent. So sometimes it's like complicated. But you know, people here are really hospitable. They have hospitality and they are really like open and they want to know a lot about you. So they immediately start to speak, and they start with Azerbaijani because like I look like a little bit like an Azerbaijani person here. So people usually relate to that, and then they switch to Russian, and they know that I don't understand that as well, so they switch to English. And even though they cannot like speak fluently, they still try to ask and communicate. And like I have a lot of like not complicated stories, but small events when I was driving somewhere in Baku, and they like came and spoke about basic stuff in Azerbaijan about life.
Well, that's interesting. And if we can move this to the university a little bit. So in terms of the courses that you take or have taken here, are there any courses, I'll throw that to both of you, you students, if you don't mind, are there any courses that kind of helped you to kind of understand cultures a little bit?
If I can say, I personally found the introduction to sociology class quite useful because it gave the fundamental aspects that are quite common in all cultures. It was quite useful for me to learn about the basics through the sociology as well.
And Shafag, I assume you've interacted with more than just two students since you've been here. So are there kind of commonalities of what courses seem to have an effect on a lot of students?
Well, first of all, I wanted to add a little bit to what Andrea said, because the keyword that you mentioned earlier, stories, this is a very big part of ADA community, and until today we have had international students from 46 countries. And for a university that is only 13 years old, it is a very big achievement. And every international student who comes and then he graduates from ADA leaves a small legacy in the form of stories. Andrea talked about taxi drivers. I do remember we had an international student from Gambia. And she usually would use the same taxi driver traveling between campus and her home. And even after she graduated, the taxi driver would often visit the campus and ask her group mates or her professors about her, because they've apparently established this very friendly connection. We had another student from Argentina. After some time, he grew this mustache that would be very typical for local residents, and he would take pride in it, saying that when I walk in the middle of the street, no one would say whether I am from Baku or not. Nobody would guess that I'm Argentinian. They all think that I'm an Azerbaijani. So this kind of anecdotes, it actually enriches the culture of our community. To your question, what I teach, my courses are communication, media and communication, public speaking. And one thing that I have found out in common, particularly this semester I teach public speaking, glossophobia, the fear of public speaking, is #1 phobia across the world. So whether I get students in my classroom from Japan or Azerbaijan or Seychelles, they all come with their own needs to acquire this skill, to become better and to reach their goals faster in their professional careers. So a lot of similarities, definitely. That is, I think, that the beauty of ADA community, because you get all of these tapestry of cultures in one place, and the uniting value for them is the thirst for knowledge and this passion, curiosity. They all arrive here to learn and to better themselves.
Well, that's really interesting. In terms of the museum, how do you incorporate students who are interested in learning or young people interested in learning about carpet culture?
If I may, I would like to invite Andrea to the Carpet Museum because we have courses of carpet making, carpet weaving. And, you know, in the previous times in Azerbaijan, all women have to weave carpets. And without this ability, you can never get married. So this is one of the features of our culture. And I should tell you that you know, you need to be a patient, and you need to be very concentrated to do this work. It takes time, and also it's very meditative. And I should tell you that a lot of young people, young women, would like to learn. And we have students even from different countries. And this is really very encouraging. And not only women, I should tell you. Just a few months ago, we have a very nice exhibition of carpets in Cannes. And one of the person from Cannes, he visited our exhibition, and he was really inspired by what he saw. And he came to Baku. He found this artist, because this was carpets created by our very famous carpet artist, Eldar Mikhailzadeh. And so he found this person. He stayed in Baku during 2 weeks, and he studied these techniques. And after he came back to France, he made himself a small loom, and he weaved small carpet. You know, I think that this is a really inspiring fact, which show us that this art really continue its evolution and its life, and that it is very interesting for people in all over the world.
Well, and speaking about all over the world, I heard, and I may have misheard this, but I heard that carpet makers intentionally make a slight mistake in a corner of the carpet because they want to symbolize that it's a human creation.
Actually, I should tell you that what you say, this is more common for embroideries, and this is more common for the items what created by people for their house. And when these items, not only as some household item, but at the same time it's sacred. I mean, it has some meaning. So it's protect from an evil eye, and it's used when the woman is pregnant and when she just give a birth of the child. So some ornaments and some compositions using for some occasions. When we talking about carpets, we should say that they divide to the different even social layers. For example, from the very old times, we can search the carpets of semi-nomadic tribes, the carpets in villages, the carpets which produced in the cities, and of course the court carpets, which show us masterpieces of this field, and which really became a piece of art. And when we speak about court carpets, because of they created by the sketches by very famous and professional artists, and the weavers also were professionals, so they couldn't be any mistake. They should be very, very precise. Yes, and this was the first what you can say when you see this carpet. They're compositionally and by their ornaments, they're incredibly beautiful and without any mistake. But for the carpets which created in houses by women without any sketches, these traditions passed from one generation to another, and this is more the memory of fingers. So there you can absolutely divide them, and you can never find two absolutely the same carpets. They always differ, and if the composition is famous, more or less, but the small ornaments, some small features brings there by each woman.
Interesting. And Elnur, so you grew up in Baku. Did you have a carpet in your house that was passed down from relatives?
Unfortunately not. We do have a carpet, but it's quite new. It's not that old. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the ancient carpets.
But even from the last generation?
From last generation, I think no.
And Shafag, did you?
I actually do, because my family comes from Karabakh. Unfortunately, it's part of Azerbaijan, which is currently occupied by Armenia, and it's a troubled region that has been in military conflict for more than 2 decades now. But Karabakh also is very famous for its very distinct carpet school. And biggest carpet, and their features, they are full of colors and life and stories. And when my family became internally displaced during the conflict, one of the things that my grandmother brought with her last minute when she had to leave the town of Agdam was this carpet, and I remember it because all of my vivid childhood memories are connected with it. And I remember that she used to tell me all the time that the main usage of this carpet in our family was that every time a newborn was in the house and they would leave the child outside in the fresh air, they would put them on this carpet because that would protect them. Even snakes would not be able to go on top and kind of slither their way to a child. So they knew that it was sort of a small island that was protecting the child.
Well, that's interesting. If you raised the issue of this conflict, I wonder if the issue of the carpets and civilizations could be expanded to not only Azerbaijan, but Armenia, to Georgia, to Iran. I mean, if we were having this conversation in any of those places, in your opinion, would they be saying that the carpets had similar value in their societies?
I think that the conversation could expand even beyond carpets, because for centuries, for ages, these nations have been living side by side. And sometimes when we watch this, contest of who invented what, particularly in this part of the world, it frankly becomes a bit comic, because when you have nations living side by side for centuries and they're literally stone throw from each other, the odds are that a lot of their traditions, a lot of their techniques would sort of be interwoven with each other, starting from carpets and all the way to cuisine. But there are definitely some features that are very distinct for Azerbaijani Carpet Museum. I think Shirin would be able to tell a little further on that.
Interesting. Well, before we get to that, though, I just wanted to bring in the issue of Scotland, because that's kind of interesting, because we've actually done some tapings in Scotland, and American audiences are particularly interested in events in Scotland. Do you agree with what we've been saying here about carpets and civilizations? Is that an element of life in Scotland, as far as you can tell?
To be completely honest, I think that Scottish culture is very broad. But so far I haven't explored the carpets as a part of Scottish culture. They have definitely other things that are more like on the spot for the international student who is studying there. But here in Azerbaijan, it's definitely a huge part of the culture.
But what aspects of culture have been the most interesting to you, I guess, in Scotland?
In Scotland, okay, so definitely the music. You know, walking in the morning to the university and hearing bagpipes everywhere, it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. Then dancing, like there's different types of like very like medieval style dances. It's really interesting. And also the food, like in Scotland, I would say that the food is really broad, like there are many things inside it, and they try to be as multicultural in this sense, but they also have like their traditional scones, their traditional tea with milk, their traditional different types of food. So it's interesting.
Well, I guess that you raise an interesting question. I wonder if we could also look at how to study civilizations through food. On my way over here, I met this guy who kept telling me about the kebabs, and he said that was really, really important. Any agreement, disagreement?
Absolutely important, I think. Yeah, the kebabs are a central element of the Azerbaijani culture, and they're made from the lamb, which is the main livestock for Azerbaijanis.
And Shafag, it looks like you have something you wanted to add to that.
Well, definitely, you can tell a lot just judging from the cuisine of a nation. And Azerbaijani gastronomy is extremely rich, and part of the tourism in the country happens because our cuisine is so rich that people just come to have a taste of it. But kebabs, probably one thing worth mentioning here, that it is a fast food, actually, the local fast food. And historically has been like that because it's very easy to make. You just need to take meat, marinate it for a little bit, and then put it on the grill. But if you look at the Azerbaijani culture, there are many, many dishes that are vegetarian, that use a lot of vegetables and fruits, which comes from the diversity of climate in Azerbaijan as well. We have 9 out of 11 global climate zones here, from subtropic in Lankaran on the Iranian border, and all the way to the snowy mountains of Shahdagh in the border with Russia. So this diversity reflects itself in the cuisine as well.
Was there something else, Shirin, that you wanted to say about the carpets that maybe somebody who's looking at this for the first time has never really thought of? It's something else that we forgot to mention before.
Yes, when we say about diversity, we should tell that our carpets are really diverse, and there is no place in Azerbaijan where carpets not produced. In all regions, in all even small villages, there are these different carpets, and very symbolical for this place. And why? Because of, as Shafag told, because of really our Azerbaijan is not so big country, but it's very diverse, and in each region there are different types of sheep, which give us a different type of wool and the colors of wool, and also there are a different natural dyes which use for the dyeing threads, and that's why we have a lot of different colors, and we have a lot of different designs, and more than 100 compositions. And that, I should tell you that is one of the main features of Azerbaijani carpets. They are really very diverse.
Well, thank you. And we only have a minute or two left. And speaking of the diversity, maybe Shafag, since you spent a fair amount of time in Washington, if you wouldn't mind, since we only have a little bit of time left, for an American audience, explain, if you would, just what are the 1 or 2 things that you want an American audience to understand about Azerbaijan?
Well, in order for them to understand that, no matter what I say, the best thing would be to travel here and see for themselves, because this is the country that literally turns every stereotype that you have upside down. You may read one thing online, you may expect one thing online, but when you actually arrive to Azerbaijan, you realize it is a completely different thing. So traveling, I would have to agree with my students, is the way to go. One of the things that we discuss in our communication courses here at the university is that modern media environment gave us so many tools to get to know know the world better, but paradoxically, it radicalizes and makes people more and more narrow-minded, because the algorithms of everything that you see online is built in a way that it gives you more of the things that you're interested in. So it kind of narrows down the topics that you usually expose yourself to. So by traveling, it's sort of a remedy against that. You need to get out of your comfort zone and see the world for what it is.
And fair enough, but not everybody can do that. So if they can't travel here, what's the second best thing?
The second best thing is to try to diversify the content that you're interested in. And when I teach social media class, my suggestion usually dislike sometimes what you like or simply ignore. Try to fool the system so it would throw on your newsfeed something different. Don't usually follow people that you agree with or they agree with you. Try to look at different perspectives. This is what makes you a more educated person and gives you generally a better understanding of what's happening in the world.
And I assume you would think and believe that ADA University is helping students to do that.
Absolutely. This is what our entire communication courses here are built on, that the major difference between an educated person and everybody else is that they try to understand, first of all, show empathy and try to understand issues from different perspectives.
Well, fair enough. Thank you all. If you would like additional information about ADA University, please visit ada.edu.az. If you would like to send a comment to me at the show, please go ahead and do so at highereducationtoday@topcolleges.com. And thank you for watching. We will continue to bring you quality discussions about important matters in today's college and university world. I'm Steven Roy Goodman, and you've been watching Higher Education Today.